What's happening, good people? Welcome to Wes's watch room. In this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Feice calendar watch. So as you know, there's been some confusion around my confusion, which I've done a video on if you've not checked out. But you can, that'll be linked in the pinned comment and the description if you've not seen it already. So we're going to be clearing all that up again today, getting the right information out there, and doing the review as normal. So this was kindly provided to the channel by the UGoo watch store and doesn't have to go back. But you guys know that's not going to change my opinion on anything, as you know, we'll find out in the duration of this review. So what I'm going to do is start off with the sizes and everything, get that out of the way. And then talk, all the pros, cons, and, good, bad, and everything about this watch. So diameter-wise, we are looking at around 41.2 between the under the pusher here and up at the 10 o'clock. If you include the crown, that does increase to 45, and it's around just under that if you tack on the pushers. 47.5 a lug to lug, so actually a little bit smaller than I anticipated. 12mm thick though, which is something I was not expecting, being an automatic. I thought it would be a bit thicker, but it's actually not too bad on that front. Standard 20mm lug width and a pretty sizable 6.8mm crown. So crystal wise, we're looking at a flat sapphire, and as you can see, there's not really much AR coating, if any at all, which is a bit of a shame. We have a stainless steel case and bracelet, 30 meters of water resistance, which is a big complaint straight away. 30 meter I don't think is really good enough in this day and age. I think 50 meters should be the minimum now, to be fair. But I'll talk about why that could be later on in the video. Sized up for me, 129 gram, screw down crown, screw down pushers, and a screw down case back too. We have a fixed bezel, ceramic, which is always nice to see. So now we've got all the specs and stuff out of the way, let's actually talk the bezel first. So this is what a big part of the confusion on my part was about. Now if you know your bezels, this is a tack style bezel. But if you know the watch now, it's not a chronograph. So the tack is, well, kind of redundant. It doesn't do anything. It's purely aesthetic. So we're moving on to the dial, something we can actually talk about. And it's a very nice crisp white dial. We have applied indices all around with a sort of tapered style everywhere apart from where you find your subdials, where we get a small truncated square. And of course they have to do a smaller one to make way for those subdials, otherwise they wouldn't fit. We do have a date window, of course, sandwiched between the 4 and 5 position. I honestly wish they wouldn't have included that, but actually, because it's a calendar watch, it sort of works and it's part of its functionality. So it's a big trade-off between that and the aesthetic of it all. Subdial wise, we have 3. I'll go over what they do later on, but the subdials are actually very nice. They've got this sort of like record style grooved circular pattern in them, some decent quality printing as well, and of course some high polished hands. Nothing fancy, but they're befitting to the style of the watch it's based upon. The main hands again are very similar in style, but actually they're a little bit more pointed on the end, so they're not exactly identical. We have a strip of black glossy paint and then a area of Loom, which I'll talk about in a little bit. The finishing seems to be good. They're all high polish, and you can see they do catch that light. Then we've got the main second hand. It's got a small counterbalance and an arrow tip, again high polish. As for text, it's pretty simple. We've got a printed minute track all the way around the end, black to contrast against that white dial. Feice and original printed, and that is another complaint I'm having as well, the original part. Now clearly this is not an original design at all, and I think they really should go about rebranding that, or maybe just putting it on watches that are more unique, because this is just not. And then finally there's automatic printed above the 6 o'clock subdial. Case wise, you know, its high polish it's all right. You know, it's not the best or the most mirror I've ever seen. And yeah, it's done to a fair standard, but it's not the best. As for the, you know, profile, it's pretty uninteresting, not a deal going on, and there's not really much downturn to those lugs either, so that could have an impact later on in the review. This side, you know, we've just got your typical 3 layout, so your 2 pushers and a crown. So again, all screwed down. We have a sign crown though. You can see it is high polish. And we've got their sort of little emblem on there. Finally, we'll talk the case back, and you know, there's not really much going on. We've got a ring of polish with all the specifications, and then we have a little disc of brushing, and that is pretty much a lot. Nothing interesting at all. So the watch itself, you know, we've got high polish lugs too, by the way, which you guys know. But the polishing is, you know, done to a pretty decent standard there at least. Bracelet, though, is another area I'm having a bit of an issue with this watch. Now, we do have mailing links, so you'll have seen the size of that in the specifications part of the review. But actually, there is a bit of play and a bit of a wobble on the end link. They are solid though, you can see just there. So that is a plus, but yeah, they're definitely not the best fitting. So that's what leads me to believe, you know, that this is just an off-the-shelf bracelet and not one that's been custom for this watch. Do have solid links, all polished at the sides, and they are push pins, you can see, holding it all together. Now for this price point, I would have expected a better, you know, quality here, to be fair. Brushed outwards, polished inners, and again, bit of an issue with that polish, and you can just see how streaky it is, and you know, it's just not up to standard for the price. And that's further enhanced, well, should I say worsened, by the clasp. So this is just, again, a cheap stainless steel pressed clasp, and it is cheap. It's even worse than some of the other ones I've seen because it's sharp. Yeah, the quality of this clasp is awful. It's one of the worst ones I have ever seen. It's pressed, but it should freaking stab me now. Yeah, it's terrible. You have to put so much pressure to actually get it to close. Undoing it's not so bad, but closing it's a nightmare. 3 micro adjusts, fine. But yeah, it is awful. And you know, it should not be allowed to be put on watches, to be fair. Well, I'll say one thing, guys, it does redeem itself a little bit here in wearability. Now, as terrible as this bracelet is, it's actually pretty comfortable. You know, the articulation's all right, and it does seem to, you know, flow quite well on my wrist. And it fits pretty nice too. Now, I've took all the links out that can be taken out, and I'm on the middle micro adjust out of the 3. So there's one to make it bigger, one to make it smaller. But yeah, it fits really nice. I don't get any overhang, and I think the diameter is really nice too. So this, I would say, you know, if you've got a wrist size similar to mine, you could probably pull this off, no problem. If you've got bigger wrists, again, it's going to be fine. If you've got a smaller wrist than myself, then this one might not be for you, unfortunately, because 1, that bracelet's not going to fit, and 2, I think just the overall size and, you know, the diameter and the lug to lug would probably be a bit too much. So this is definitely 6 and above, I would say. So looking at the profile, if I just show you, you see we do get a gap because we've got no downturn to those lugs whatsoever. So yeah, we don't get the best fit, even though it's really comfortable. Yeah, it doesn't quite hug your wrist. Well, it doesn't hug my wrist, but again, you know, that might be different. So the next part of this review is, of course, about the movement. Now, the one in this is a Seagull 1654. And I actually did make a mess up in the video where I was correcting the original mess up. So I got confused between a day and night and a moon phase. Now, to be honest, guys, I thought they were the same thing, just, you know, a different word. For, you know, someone might have called it a day and night, someone might have called it moon phase, but apparently, well, not apparently, it is true that moon phases are a completely different complication. Now, guys, I've all my hands up. I didn't know that. I thought they were the same thing. But anyway, so it turns out this is a day and night, not a moon phase. So let's just correct that. And again, apologies for, you know, the wrong information again. So yeah. just again, lack of knowledge on my part, but guys, you know, we can't know everything. So anyway, let's move on. So I do actually know what all this stuff does now. So at the 9 o'clock, we have a day of the week. So we have 7, which you can just see right there. So that is Sunday. And obviously it moves all the way around back to Sunday again. The one at the 6 o'clock is your 24-hour. So you can see, you know, it's set to the wrong time now because obviously I've been messing around with it. But yeah, so that is your 24-hour. This one is your month. So you can see right now, again, I've been, you know, messing around with it. 12 is December, and then, you know, obviously January, February, you know, so on and so forth. So it is a proper calendar, and of course you've got the day as well. So it is, yeah, a calendar watch. It's not a chronograph, which is, you know, why I was so confused, because it looks like a chronograph, but it isn't. Anyway, so that's what the movement does. It's a calendar. So how you actually use this movement, you know, it's a little bit interesting. We have 2 pushers, which you need to unscrew in order to access them. And you know what, the screw down pushers, they actually feel fine. You know, they're really nice to use. We've got good knurling on both, good amount of grip. So this one right here, you can see we can actually adjust the 9 o'clock one. So you can see I can advance that by pressing the top pusher. So you can see now I've made it Sunday. So you can see it's lined up at the 7, which means it'd be a Sunday. And then obviously when you've done with that, you know, you screw it back down and then you can't accidentally push it. The bottom one is for your 3 o'clock. So this does the month. So obviously now we're on the first month. So if I press it, you can see it's hopped over to 2nd, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc, etc. And that is how you set it all, doing that. So let's talk about, you know, actual adjusting the time and date and everything. So first up is fully extended, and you can adjust your time this way. So I'm just going to get it set so I can actually adjust the rest of it. So you can see the bottom sub-dial is moving because that's synced to the hands, of course, which is your 24-hour day and night. So you can see we've got that in position now. So if we move back to phase 1, you can see the hand has started away because, again, this has got hacking. We'll start with the winding. And you know what? It's a bit squeaky. A bit grater, and it doesn't inspire much confidence. So you pop it out again, and you can see a couple of twists, and that date does advance. So you can do that. And of course, finally, you've just seen does the date. So the crown, nice size, good grip. But you can see we have a bit of issue with re-engagement. Sometimes it threads on perfectly fine. Others, like now, it's being stubborn. But even though I do this fully tight, and that is as tight as I can do it, there is a gap between the case and the underside of the crown. So I'm thinking that's why they've put a seal on, because otherwise it probably wouldn't have even got 30 meters of water resistance. So is that a you know, design flaw? I don't know. Is it supposed to be like that, and that's why they've had to gasket it? Again, guys, I don't actually know. So final thing we're going to talk is the loom. Now, I'm not really sure on the compound. I've looked and I can't find, again, any definitive answer. Now, it's got a very, very similar hue to BGW9. Is it though? I can't really say for certain. What I can say though is the loom isn't bad. You know, I've definitely seen worse, especially on watches where they don't have a massive area for loom. So obviously you can't cram a lot of loom into them. So it's solid loom for the style of the watch and for the area of loom that there actually is applied. So could it be better? Of course it could, but I think it's pretty fair. For, you know, the style and even the price too. So now, speaking of price, this one's going to set you back £180, and that is before any tax as well. So yeah, it's not exactly what I'd call affordable, guys. Would I recommend one of these? No, I wouldn't. I mean, I love the styling, don't get me wrong, it's a lovely looking watch. Bit of a mislead on the dial, but it's a lovely looking watch. It's actually well made in some parts, but we do have, you know, some issues. So yeah, I don't think it's worth 180 quid. To be, I'm going to be perfectly honest, guys. It's definitely not a £180 watch by any stretch of the imagination. I think what really they should have done is use this movement in a different watch and put a VK in this and made it cheaper. To be honest, I think that is probably the route they should have gone down instead of what we've got here. Because now we've just got a bit of a confused style. You know, we've got a calendar watch that thinks it's a chronograph. And yeah, honestly, guys, I can't recommend it. I think it's too expensive, especially for the quality of the bracelet and you know, the little issues that we're having in other places. So yeah, it's too expensive for what it is. So guys, do you agree, or do you think I'm being a little bit too harsh? So that is it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one. If you want to see more content on the channel, click the links you can see right now. Like the video if you enjoyed it, hit that bell so you don't miss any future content, and of course feel free to subscribe if you want to stay in touch with the channel. Thanks very much. Have a good one.